Hello everybody, welcome and thank you for joining to this informative session on the ESS2026 European Summer School. This is Victor Romo, lecturer and geopolitics enthusiast. I like to think of my journey as a transition from academic study to active citizenship. Since 2018, I have been deeply immersed in the study of Europe's future and geopolitics, completing several high-level geopolitics seminars and courses to better understand the forces at play. However, thinking beyond the classroom, my concern for the current state of Europe compelled me to take a more active role in 2025. I step in by becoming a voice in promoting the European Summer School, driven by this desire to see the European and Occidental civilization project thrive. I stand before you today not just as a student of international affairs and geopolitics, but as a dedicated advocate for our shared future and an active agent of change. I will start this session with a short Trattoria, which is a type of Roman declamation addressed to the young. To you ESS2026 candidates. Why do you linger in the doorway of your tent, brilliant one, young one? While the horizon burns, you wait at cost of a journey a mere 5 days from the 29th of June to the 3rd of July, as if time were yours to hoard. But outside the clamor is not the din of Trojan spears. It is a grinding of a continent deciding whether to renew its sentient pact with hope or to slide into the silence of irrelevance. Do you not hear it? Look upon the shield that FIS2 is forging even now, not of bronze, but of conscience. It is the first great circle. What do you see? City at peace? Weddings and torchlit dances, elders sitting in judgment upon a smooth stone? Restoring justice at the city gate? That city is fragile, young Europe. It is your inheritance of humanist values. The common good, not as an abstraction, but as daily labor. Jetted phrase. The old abbey of Drongen, ancient and silent, waits to become your workshop. There within these walls, the University of Francisco de Vitoria and Comece and Nawa Cancun summon you to really learn the art of that circle. To sit in council with high masters, with high lecturers, to weave law and philosophy back into a garment fit for a people grown cold. Turn your eyes to the second circle, a city at war, armies clashing by a river, strife and havoc raging. Do you imagine you stand above that maelstrom? The geopolitical shifts, the democratic winters, the trembling pillars of democratic stability, these are now the burdens of distant generals. They are the siege engines at your gates. You say you are but one soul. Yet Achilles too was one, and his return to battle turned the tide. The summer school does not promise comfort. It promises a rigorous arming. You will walk the corridors of the European Parliament, not as a tourist, but as a scout of the future. You will test your vision against that of peers who, like you, refuse to be mere witnesses. Now look to the broad fields, the ploughing and the harvest. The earth is tilled, the grain ripens, the vintage overflows. This is the scholarship, the mentorship, the shared bread of community life that the program offers. From Brussels, you will travel a short road. Logistics made light. Peace and scholarships spelled out clearly, because an honest forge does not hide its process. The soil is ready. Will you leave the plow to rust? So thank you again. Let's begin. Let's jump right away to the content. So the meta-narrative is shattering, my friends. For nearly 3 decades, Europe retreated into a self-imposed holiday from history. It was a period defined by the comforting illusion that peace was a permanent byproduct of economic integration, and that the continent's destiny was a steady, predictable march toward technical governance and multilateral harmony. The Brussels machinery. Once this engine of progress became the architect of a thin reality, a world where complex political questions were reduced to administrative adjustments. But as war returns to the European frontiers and the global order fractures, the holiday has come to a violent end. Today the continent is not merely navigating a series of isolated crises. It is facing a fundamental challenge to the very model of its existence. The era of reactive crisis management is now over. To survive, Europe requires a shift from repetition to responsibility and creativity. This is the foundational premise of the 2026 European Summer School, a call for a new generation to move beyond the role of a spectator and toward the active reframing of a human, dignified future. To understand the shift, one must look at the 5 structural pillars upon which this movement for renewal is rebuilt. So we have dual pressures on the European model. In Iraq, accelerating demographic decline, lacking effective family policies, migratory flows with structural integration struggles, political polarization threatening state governability, and the outer age, growing US-China rivalry, carving the world into exclusive zones, conflict in the Middle East, US national security demanding Europe assume military responsibility, and collapse of multilateral diplomacy. High vulnerability, high internal fragmentation. So what is the origin choice? Rebirth or irrelevance from the global landscape? That is the purpose of the European Summer School. We need a shift from reaction and repetition to responsibility and creativity. The posture of the rebirth is to become an agent of change, creative responsibility, reading the present with clarity. The strategy, shaping a shared future, structural reading of transformation's long-term political virtue. The foundations root in our historical heritage, human dignity, and democratic values. So enter the forge of our Achilles shield, European Summer School 2026, our 3rd edition. Now it will be in Belgium, 29th June, 3rd of July 2026. You will not emerge as a mere spectator of crisis, but as an agent of change equipped to build a human, dignified future. The Crucible, 5 days to reframe the horizon, convening rigorous intellectual depth, great lecturers, plural dialogue, and networking in a community setting. The Legacy, a global immersive program that has already united young leaders from 41 countries on this 3rd edition. That is why we are urging new people, new nationalities to come, young people from the Great Anawa Cancun. So what is this operating system of Rebirth base that is based at European summer school? First of all, human dignity and heritage, acquiring anthropological and moral grammar of Europe, its history, its values, its Christianity, core commons, solidarity, responsibility, subsidiarity, democracy. What is the actionable power that we want to introduce? Democratic governance, cohesion, geopolitical agency. Change does not begin with abstract plans, but with a revision of the horizon within which individuals and communities live. This is not a weakness, it's our ultimate and even last resource. So let's review what the days would be in your stay at the ESS2026. What is Europe? The long-standing European meta-narrative that believed that the frictionless movement of capital and goods would naturally secure social cohesion is faltering under the weight of lived experience. When institutional promises no longer align with the reality on the ground, the narrative ceases to be a guiding light and becomes a cage used to justify the status quo. The danger is that Europe remains trapped in its own rhetoric, losing sight of both the world as it is and the aspirations of its own citizens. For a shared future to be possible, the narrative must once again match the reality of a world that has grown indifferent to the old rules of engagement. Indeed, if a narrative does not match reality, it falters and becomes a meta-narrative, justifying the status quo rather than opening a shared future for all and agents of change. Who are Europeans today? Externally, the continent finds itself squeezed within a pincer of escalating rivalry between the United States and China. This friction is carving the globe into exclusive spheres of influence, effectively dismantling the World Trade Organization-based model of globalization that Europe once championed. Despite being a primary architect of global rules, Europe has become a principal victim of their breakdown. The 2025 US National Security Strategy has already signaled a shift, explicitly demanding that Europe assume full military responsibility for its own frontiers, exposed to economic bullying and a return of imperial logics. This union risks becoming a passive political space, one that merely reacts to the initiatives of external powers, rather than exercising its own sovereign agency. It is also suffering the internal demographic paradox. The strain is equally visible from within. A long-denied demographic decline is now accelerating, compounded by family-friendly policies, and a struggle to integrate the migratory flows essential to the continent's survival. This is not mere statistical trend. It is a direct threat to social cohesion and the governability of key nations like Belgium, France, and Spain. With total debt spiraling and middle-class income stagnating, the demographic paradox forces an urgent choice. Europe must address the fundamental structures of its society, or faces slow erosion of the democratic values and the institutional stability that define its identity. Day 3. Can Europe still act? Exclusive visit to the European Parliament in Brussels. Direct discussion with members regarding pluralism, democracy and common good. Strategy debates on NATO, security, defense, and Europe's capacity to act among friends. Europe in an increasingly multipolar world marked by the return of imperial logics and spheres of influence. Do we have the agency to shape outcomes, or we are becoming irrelevant? Day 4. Democratic governance. The threat: pluralism, populism, illiberalism, and the rise of autocracy. Renewal requires an excavation of roots. At ESS2026, a historian monastery set against the reflective cells of the River Lake, the 2026 program seeks to utilize Europe's cultural heritage as a resource for the future. By drawing upon Catholic social teaching, the program identifies an anthropological and moral grammar centered on solidarity, subsidiarity, and human dignity. You can see the values that guide also our university. In a secular pluralistic age, these are not viewed as confessional relics, but as foundational principles for a multipolar world. The abbey's ancient walls provide a thick, descriptive contrast to the hollow technocracy of the present, offering the intellectual resources needed to think beyond fragmented technical responses to civilizational malaise. Day 5. Crafting a shared future. Hope is not naive optimism. It's a vital political virtue guiding European action amid change of era. Output: collaborative synthesis, living as equipped agents ready to shape the common good. Reflection: at ESS2026 and action at the European Parliament. You will have full board accommodation in comfortable rooms overlooking the courtyard. Built for deep reflection, dialogue, community life, and renewed focus. Historic monastery surrounded by peaceful gardens along the River Lea. So who is called to this vanguard? Program designed to young professionals engaged with Europe futures. Could be 25 and 35, but we are open to great students, people who are reflective, people who want to create policy, to take action. It could be 5th, 6th semester, and still be reliable. You just need to fill out a form and you will be ready to go. Early career professionals, public affairs, policy, law, economics, civil society, or governance. You must demonstrate solid academic professional background and a profound willingness to engage seriously within Europe's current challenges. Engaged individuals determined to move from observing the crisis to shaping a shared future. Some logistics that can be reviewed with the logistics part. Accessible to exceptional talent. A full program fees include 5 days, 4 nights, full board in Ghent, Belgium. So be ready. Step out of the tent, step out of your seat, and go at the table. Review the form to apply. Complete application form, submit updated CV and motivational letter, 2 short courses coordination, and you're almost ready to go. We have only 5 spots for an hour campaign. So they are extremely limited and only open to great students who think, reflect, and want to take action. So thank you. This was Victor Marcos Romo, lecturer, geopolitics enthusiast. Any question, comment, idea so far, I will be happy to answer it. If not, I give the word to academic coordination about short courses that will guide you through the logistics, payment, anything that you require to go for it. This program is taught entirely in English, so you need a good understanding and also speaking of English, so you can really understand, learn, reflect, and take action at the table. So thank you, have a great day. Any questions, just send me an email. I will be glad to assist you with the help also of short courses coordination. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.